Before we dive in tonight, what did we learn yesterday? Did we have any light bulb moments? Did we have any proud moments? Did we have any confusing moments?
I actually went last night and created my server
Nice,
and created tablet my actual databases for my different projects.
nice,
I had some errors, but I was able to fix them and I caught them. I don't have any errors now, but
good.
I do have a question on how to test it to make sure that they're properly linked. I mean, I
Sure.
don't have anything screaming at me. I don't have anything that's out of place. I followed the structure that you did starting on Monday. Um, I started having some issues in the beginning as I was putting it together because I was like still trying to think on how to do it. But I
Yeah,
was finally able to link everything together and I'm not showing any errors.
beautiful.
The databases are showing on Beekeeper. So, and I went based on my project and how I had everything, my use states on the project, and
Mhm.
used those names to do the databases.
Awesome. So the best way to test it is to either have something on the front end, make a call to an endpoint on the back end, have the back end insert whatever the front end sent in, and then being able to see that in Beekeeper. If you are able to see that new row in Beekeeper, everything is properly linked and you did everything right. That kind of becomes easier as you start looking at your capstone functions and start going, for yours, for example, hey, I need to fill out the form to add in a new food pantry. So, hey, I've got that table in the database. When I type all of the stuff in, does the stuff come from React to use state into the state properly? Does it go from the state into the fetch request? Does it go from the fetch request to the backend and then the backend to the pantry.insert or pantry.create form function from SQLize? And then can I see that in Postgres, in Beekeeper? That's a lot of steps and it can go wrong at any one of them. But if you can see that row in there, that means you have completed probably the final requirement for the capstone. And now it's up to you to decide, hey, where do I want to focus on getting my functionality working?
Okay, because I wasn't sure if right now I have to see it in the project or it was only on Beekeeper. So I wasn't sure how was I supposed to test it to make sure that it was working properly, but I could work on that tonight to see if it actually goes into Beekeeper and I can see it in Beekeeper.
Beautiful. And that's a good note for everyone, right? The capstone check-in for next Tuesday, the goal is to have something full stack working. Now, at the end of this week, you may decide that's going to be my login screen. I want to get a login screen working. I want to make it so that when someone types their email and password in, I can tell them if it's the correct password or not. And that is enough to meet the full stack requirements of the capstone. You will probably cross that point and go, well, I've got 3 weeks left or 4 weeks left in class. What now? And that's kind of the fun part of the capstone for you to say, well, it's up to you because we've covered so much. Do you want to focus on getting more information into the back end? Do you want to practice with the database a little bit more? Do you want to be perfecting your front end and working with more CSS stuff? Do you decide, hey, I want some more functionality? Maybe I want Google Maps to get working and I want to spend a little bit more time on that. There are so many different places to go here. And the important thing to remember is software is never done. There is always one more feature that we would like to add. There's always one more thing we would like to make a little bit prettier. So what I would say is there's kind of two things to level out when you're deciding, hey, once I get my full stack done, once I get that database working, two things to weigh out there. One is, where can I find the most challenge? Where am I going to say, hey, this is what I want to learn more on? And while I have Max and all the mentors of Careers in Code and all the one-on-ones available, where do I want to practice while I have that tight support network around me? So that's one thing to gauge. The other thing to gauge is, hey, what is the most important thing for my end user? What is going to be that wow factor that says, hey, when I'm demoing at graduation, when I'm showing off my 2-minute demo of the application, what's going to be the razzle dazzle, right? What's going to make that app sparkle? What's going to make everyone in the audience go, ooh? And so those are the two things that you kind of want to weigh out. Get your full stack done first, get your server set up, get your SQLize working, get something in the front end, showing up in the back end, and showing up in the database. Once you get that complete, now you get to decide. The answer may be keep on going on your full stack, get more endpoints working, get more forms working, get more pages pulling that information. That's totally fine. But weigh that out and say, hey, what features are going to be really impressive? What makes my app stand out when I demo it? That's one path you can take. The other path you can take is, hey, what did I struggle with? What were the things that I want a little bit more practice with? And that could be going all the way back to week 2 when we started working with our HTML. And that could go all the way up until literally what we're covering in class tonight and tomorrow, which is more practice with authentication and all of that kind of information. So lots of different places you can go, but we are 6 days away from our final capstone check-in. So that capstone check-in, the goal is to have full stack working. That's your database, that's your backend server, that's some fetches in the front end, but it only takes one. Once you are over that threshold, it is totally up to you to decide what you spend the last 3 weeks of the program on. The other thing that I want to mention is that while Nathan is coming in exactly a week from today, it is not a requirement for the program or for graduation to have your capstone deployed. It is totally fine to demo your application running on localhost. Right now, you guys don't even know how to deploy to full stack, and that's okay. You guys know Nathan. Nathan does a great job, like I tried to do on stopping, letting you guys test it, trying to get it to work. He's going to go through in class to help you guys deploy your blog project so you get that kind of experience. But I don't want you losing sleep or sweat and bullets over trying to get your capstones deployed. It's great because then you can actually say, hey, friends and family, go to this URL, go test out my website, go see what you think. And while that is cool, it is not a requirement of the program. So you'll learn the full stack. You'll learn from Nathan over the next in a week. You'll have him for a week and a half to teach you all of that stuff. But do not lose sleep if you cannot get your capstone deployed. It's a great goal to have, but not a requirement for graduation. Do we have any questions about where we're headed?
Yeah, so yesterday we were talking about encryption and how to block people from getting to your password. Today it's more of we're authenticating that it is that person. Okay.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
so we haven't done anything with it yet, right? We did all the
Right.
work yesterday to get the user table, and then we learned about password encryption in the second half. But now we're like, okay, what now, right? Like I got my login on the front end, and I got all the work on the database side done, and that kind of leaves us that one thing in the middle, which is the actual server being able to do that authentication.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions before we dive in tonight? Okay. Couple things that I wanted to mention. Tomorrow, there is a career fair at Lemoyne. If you can make it, it is 3:30 to 5:30. I highly encourage you guys to attend that. Even if you feel like you're not ready for that full-time job, now is the time to start thinking about that. Laura's career module is 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away. That is coming up real quick. The offer does stand that if you complete all the career modules in Canvas, you do not have to attend class that week, although I would encourage that you do. Even if you've completed everything. Laura is a great career coach. I thought I was good at career coaching, and then I sat in on a couple of her classes, and I was like, oh my God, I need to start taking notes. This is all really good advice. So Laura has a lot of great career content headed your way. What Laura cannot do for you is give you practice talking to an employer, practice getting over those nerves, practice handing over the business card and writing follow-ups, the practice interviewing. All of that is something that you gotta get over the imposter syndrome and just dive into the deep end. And a career fair is an awesome place to do that. Even if you don't end up wanting to work for that employer, just getting the practice of talking to people, understanding recruiters and what the process looks like, getting practice talking about yourself. That sounds so simple, and then you go to do it and you're like, I'm a careers and code bootcamp student, and they're like, well, I don't know what the fuck that is, like, and so getting practice with your elevator pitch, right? 30 seconds of, hey, I'm a boot camp student. It was an intense program over 6 months. I learned full stack JavaScript development, and then some kind of hook, right? Have some question right at the end of your elevator pitch. Don't give them a chance to disengage. Hey, I was wondering what opportunities you had available. Hey, I was wondering what technology languages that you use at your company. Hey, I'm wondering what your favorite thing is about working at the company, right? Try and kick off that conversation, right? My big quote is conversation over interrogation. How can you make it more conversational? Nothing is going to make a worse first impression when you're nervous. And so work on that. All of these recruiters know that nerves are part of this whole process. I still get nervous whenever I'm public speaking or have an important conversation, but practice is the best way, in my opinion, to combat those nerves. So have your elevator pitch ready, and then have a hook at the end of it. Have something that you're kicking off the conversation, not just talking about yourself, but engaging with them and figuring out what comes next. That career fair is tomorrow at 3:30. If you are a couple minutes late to class, it is no big deal. Just shoot me a message. I know a couple of you guys have reached out already, but if you are planning on attending and are worried about not getting to class on time, just shoot me a message, no big deal. You can also tune into class from the Lemoyne Library, or I believe the Erie 21 house. So if you are on campus and want to tune into class from campus, that is totally fine. Just bring a pair of headphones with you so you don't disturb anyone else around you, but totally fine to tune into class from the Lemoyne campus. With that said, there is, let me confirm this. There is a skill-based hiring program that is kicking off as a where do I put that? Okay, there is a skill-based hiring program that I am trying to get Liza to come in and give you guys a little bit of a rundown on that. That is an opportunity just for Erie 21 Block 4 students. And it's an opportunity to practice with your resume, get to know the employers a little bit more, all of that kind of stuff. I am going to ping Liza right now before I forget. We'll have more details for you about that tomorrow. If Liza cannot come into class, I will do a very bad impression of her and try and share that same information with you guys. That program kicks off next week, and there's a little bit of prep work that you have to do for it. So I will share that slide deck with you tomorrow and make sure that I have that in my notes so I don't forget. Before we dive into code, last chance for any questions. Okie doke. So we are going to kick off the way we always kick off. We are going to close out of the code from yesterday. And a reminder to everyone, the reason why we move this code over day to day is that it can be very overwhelming when you try and get into your capstone and you're like, here's all of this code that we've been working on now for, I think this is our 4th day. It can be very overwhelming to go into this final version and try and build it out in your capstone, right? Try it on your own. And so the reason why we break this up is hopefully it makes it a little bit easier to say, hey, on day 3, we have this nice tiny little server.js file. This is the good starting point. You don't need to necessarily go to the latest version of the code that we're working on. You can jump right into this and be like, all right, this is a little snippet. This is easier to implement. By the time you are done your capstone, it may look something more like the server file that we have started with. But I hope you guys have learned at this point that implementing code from the top down is just not the way we write this code, right? Even me, senior developer, borderlining on expert with JavaScript and full stack development, I still don't write my code top down. I write my code in the order that it makes sense to me. Build the user interface, go to the back end, make sure there's a fetch existing, go back to the front end, write out that fetch, go back to the back end, go build the database model based off of the user interface, and then, go from there. Okay, now that we've got the read done, what does the create look like? So it can be very intimidating and not the right approach to start at our final version of the code and start at line 1 and write it all out. So when you're working on your capstones over this weekend, no homework this week. Your only homework this week is to prep for your capstone check-in on Tuesday. Quick reminder that we do not have class on Monday. We have Monday OFF, off, not off. But off is what you should be doing while you have off. Try and get some auth working, not a requirement of the capstone, but a good way to meet that full stack requirement for our check-in on Tuesday. With all of that said, let's dive into code because I'm sick of hearing my own voice. I'm going to week 20, I'm going to day 2, I'm going to back end, I'm going to my node modules and deleting it. I'm heading over to my front end. I'm deleting out the node modules from there. I am right-clicking on my day 2 and duplicating it. That was weird. Duplicating it. I will send a zip file of this day 3 in the live stream channel if for whatever reason you want to jump up to where I am at. Caitlin did throw the post for the career fair in the CIC student C4 channel. So if you need any more details about that, check out that link or feel free to message Taylor directly and she'll be able to give you any details about that. Or if you would like a little practice with an elevator pitch, you are welcome to schedule a one-on-one with me and we can practice that and I can give you some feedback there. I am going to the live stream channel and dropping this zip in case you are behind or want to use my code instead of your own code. And then I am going into my day 3. I'm popping open my backend. I'm also popping open my front end. I'm throwing that on the left and my backend on the right. I am opening my terminal in both package.json in both the front end and the back end. I am running my npm install on both the front end and the back end. I am running npm start on my back end. And then when it's done installing on the front end, I am also going to run my npm start. That should fire me up to my blog homepage with my 2 posts showing, or however many posts you have in your database. If you do not have posts showing here, go check your backend. Make sure your backend is running. Make sure there are no errors here. If it is running, try and refresh the page. See if that brings up your posts. If it doesn't, that should be a red flag of, hey, before I go into any new features, let me figure out why posts are not showing here. If it says no posts, we'll go to the post editor, go make a new post, go see if that's showing up. We want to make sure that as we develop additional functionality, that we don't break existing functionality. And the best time to do that is right when you start up the project, right? Make sure that where you left off last night is not in a broken state, so that when we come in today, everything is fine. Unfortunately, there are some nights that you leave your code in a broken state and you cannot figure out, how to get that fix it. Leave yourself some notes when that happens, right? At the end of the night, just leave a note for your future self, because your future self is going to be thanking you for leaving a note of where we left off, especially if things are broken. I'm going to start a live share for you guys.
My things are broken.
Let me get this live share started and then you can share a screen. Broken as in you knew they were broken last night, or broken as in you just found out they were broken?
I did not know last night. I just found out. Yeah. I thought everything was great last night.
Everything is awesome. Okay, go ahead, share a screen.
And then boom.
Okay, so you've got a error address in use in your front end. No, yeah, I'm confused. 3001, why didn't it give you the option to just pick another port? Why?
I literally did that and it just didn't.
I don't know what to tell you. I saw it. You're not crazy. I saw that it didn't actually work and open it on another port, but you're good to go now.
Thank you.
Hey Max, real quick, I just wanted to mention something. It's really neither here nor there, but that header component that is on the app page, I think you added that just to kind of like show an example. I don't know if you still like want that to be showing up on every page, or if anyone else doesn't want that header showing up on every page. Like I think it's okay to take that out, or if you can tell them.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about?
On my app.js, I have this component called header, and we just did that as an example to show you how we can get one component to show up on every page, no matter what route we're on. So if you do have the header, which looks like everything is awesome blog in the front end, and you don't want that, you can delete out the header in app.js, and that will remove that from everything. This project certainly isn't a fully complete blog in terms of polishing and containers and mobile responsiveness and all of that stuff. This is really our full stack focus. But if you wanted to continue developing on this and practicing on it, you would certainly want to invest some time into the front end CSS and containers and layouts and all of that kind of stuff. Brandon, what's up?
Yeah, my home screen isn't showing the post. Like, I know it's communicating with the database, but that's not being reflected on the home screen.
Share screen, let's take a look.
I couldn't figure out where this is stemming from.
So is there a possibility that there are no blog posts in your database to show?
Let's see.
Double click. There we go. Okay, so we definitely have posts in there, so that's not the problem. Let's take a look. We've got no errors in the front end, so we're gonna go to your front end and we're gonna look at where that API call happens in home.
Okay.
And you're going to 3001, you're console logging out the posts, and then you're setting them into state, which is everything you should be doing. So we're going to go back. This is on line 13. So we're going to look at line 13 in your console. I'm just going to refresh it. And you don't even have a 13. Use effect. Count the array, make the call, you call it. Weird. Okay, let's try console log 1 and console log 2 and just see if either of those show up. So 1 and 2 are happening. That's good. Let's try in here console log 3 and see what happens. Go back to Chrome. Okay, 3 is showing up, so we know that code is running. Let's do our console log 4 down here. And that does not show up. So that's a quick way to see, hey, everything was working up until this fetch, and now something's broken. So that means the problem isn't with our fetch. Well, it is with our fetch. It's not with the fetch on the front end. It's probably the fetch on the back end.
Okay.
So let's come back over to, we're going to posts. And we're going to posts here. So we're going to just console.log 1 over here. And then console.log 2. I save, I go to the front end, and we've got 1 and 2. So we know that's working. Let's go look at what is coming back from that. So we console log our posts, we go back to the front end, nope, to the front end in the browser, we refresh, and what we got out appears to be all of our posts.
But it seemed like were some of them like missing IDs, or like they almost seemed like some of the posts were missing like some
Content in here that shouldn't be causing the problem, but let's see.
Oh yeah, I do see the IDs. Yeah.
We're gonna apply and we're gonna refresh. That did not fix it. So we are res sending back curly braces, not square brackets. Refresh, and you're back in business. Congrats! That anything that takes me more than 5 minutes to debug is a good challenge for me.
Because I remember we were halfway through like applying the delete button, and I was like, why is my home screen like this? And I just couldn't find out where that was coming from. All right, awesome.
Really good example for everyone, though, of what it takes to debug this, right? I didn't know where the problem was, obviously, for a couple minutes. And so I went through step by step, and I'm thinking, all right, where's the home screen? Where do we start? We start here. So let's start putting our console logs in. Well, it was logging out here, and it was logging out here, and it was logging out here, but it wasn't logging out when we got down to here. So that's where I go, all right, problem's got to be in the back end. So I go over to the back end, and I start logging out here, and I start logging out here. And all of that's working, but it isn't sending it back. And so we know the problem is before this line, but after this line. And that's how we can narrow it in and go, oh, okay, it's the res.send. It was getting all the posts, but it wasn't properly sending it back to the front end in order to fix that.
Okay.
Great example of debugging.
Thanks again.
No problem. Any other questions? Everyone set up? Everyone good to go? Okay. So let's remember where we left off. We made this lovely login screen. And the login screen, if we go to that in our code, we have this fetch to the login. We set it up as a method post. We've got our application JSON, and we're sending that to the backend. And then we switch back over to our backend code and go to our server.js, and we created this login. But the problem was we were like, well, how can we tell if that's a real user or not when we don't have any users in the database? So we created our whole user model. We figured out what fields we needed in there. And then we said, okay, well, we could go shove users in through Beekeeper. And we do that by going into Beekeeper, connecting to the local database, going to the blog. And here's our users table. But what we ended up with was saying, okay, but there should be some way to tell the database, hey, go look up to see if this user exists. If the user does exist, then don't do anything. We're good to go. But if the user does not exist, go ahead and seed the database. Go ahead and insert that first user for us based off of these credentials. We also learned that, hey, we can hash, we can secure that user's password by encrypting it, a one-way encryption, and using that bcrypt library to pull all of that off. So now we kind of left ourselves in a good spot to say, hey, we've got our user created, and we've got this information coming into the backend to this login endpoint. How do we tell if that user is authenticated or not? And the answer is, well, kind of complicated. The first thing we need to do is take whatever email address they're sending in from the front end and see if that user exists. The way we do that is we go back up to our login and we say const user equals await, and then we're going to use that user sequelize model. We're headed to the database, and we want to find a user, only find one of them, where the email is coming in from the rec.body.email. Then we're going to console log out the user.
Max, can you say that just one more time, please?
Yep. We go to the login endpoint because we know we're sending the information from the front end to the login. The login contains the email and the password that got typed in the front end in the body. So we go over to our login endpoint on the back end, and we say, hey, when they send in their email address, we've got to find the user first. We've got to know if that user exists. So what we do is we use the user model, and we say, hey, we want to find one of the users in the database where their email address lines up with the email address coming from the body from the front end. Then, based off of that result, we want to console log out that user. So we haven't done any authentication yet. This is just the first step of, hey, user ABC at AOL.com is trying to sign in. Does that user exist? Do we have that user in our database? So here's how we test that. We go to the browser, and I'm going to type in a@a.com and hit login. And what do we get over here? We get null. Well, why do we get null? Because if we go look in our Beekeeper, there is no a@a.com. There's no user at a@a.com. So we get null. Okay, well, putting on our QA or quality assurance hat, if we test for a user that doesn't exist, we should test for a user that does exist. So I'm going to go back over and I'm going to do max@zane.tech, and I'm going to hit the login button. And what do we get in our terminal other than a whole bunch of stuff? We actually get the user with my password and my name and all of that stuff. So I'm like, cool. We now know that based off of what's in the front end, we're making our fetch requests. We're sending that information into the back end. The back end is then taking the email address from the front end and finding if that user exists. Okay, before we go forward, though, we should probably handle if that user doesn't exist, because it doesn't matter what password they typed in. If the username doesn't exist, we don't care. Tell them, hey, something's not right. So we're going to go here in our console log user, and we're going to take that off and say, if there is not a user, res.send back an error that says email not found. Else, if there is a user, we're going to keep going with something else. Now I'm sending this back to the front end, but the front end needs to handle that. So what we do on the front end is we say, no matter what, we are going to get the login data by awaiting the login response.json. And if there is an error in the data, then alert the data.error. Login data.error, my bad. Should be login data.error and login data.error. No data dot anything, login data dot everything. Okay, so if everything works, we go to our browser. I go type in an account that doesn't exist, and I hit login, and I get email not found. So we modified our if statement to say if there is not a user on the back end, res.sendback respond to the front end and say, hey, that email address doesn't exist. Else, send back logged in true. Now we haven't figured out if they're actually logged in yet or not, but we always want to res.send something back from the server. Then from the front end code, we had to say, hey, go parse out the JSON. And once you've got the JSON, check to see if there is an error. If there is an error, go ahead and alert the user about it. Try and arrange this so you guys can see both of them. Anyone need another minute? Okay. Got a push notification that Ted Lasso turns in a month. So if you're behind and a Ted Lasso watcher, great show.
What's that show even about?
An American football coach at like the college level ends up teaching a professional soccer team over in the UK, and it's him bringing in American charm into a sport that does not have much room for Americanism.
That describes it perfectly, but it's a really hard show to describe, like the comedy of it. Like on the surface, it's really hard to explain like how the characters and everything plays. It's a great show, but it is hard to explain to people like why it would be so funny.
Jason
when you press-
Sudeikis is like one of the best people who've ever been through SNL, and he's the main actor in it. So very, very good.
So if you go into the login and you put your email and you press login, you're supposed to get a response.
Nothing
the
is supposed
terminal?
to happen if you type in a valid email address. But if you type an invalid email
Okay.
address and hit the login button, you should get email not found.
Hey, Max, what did we do on the front end again? I was more watching than coding along.
Go to the browser, type in an email address that is not in your database, hit the login button, and if you get email not found, you're good to go.
But no, didn't we do some code in the front end though?
Oh, we did. We added 17 through 20 in the front end.
On the login.
Yes.
Okay.
Xona, what's up?
Mine doesn't give me the error.
Share your screen.
And then.
Okay, so you got an app crashed in your backend. So we start there. What is it telling you the error is?
Oh, request send is not a function.
Don't you hate it when I make you figure it out on your own?
Thanks.
No problem. See, I don't even have to poll you guys anymore. When I see the heads going back and forth, I know you're not done yet.
All right. So you said put in an email does not exist, hit login, and then do what?
And then make sure it gives you a little pop-up that says email not found.
Let me try it again. I got a bunch of errors, but I didn't get that message. All right, let me try it again.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
All right.
All right, failed to fetch. I don't love. Look at the one above that error though. Error name not resolved.
So post 3001 login. All right. So post.
No, in login. Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry. All right.
different post method post. And it says name not resolved. So go to where your fetch is happening in here. And what do you notice about that fetch? Where are you fetching to?
Wait, I can't see where you're on your side.
Line 9.
All right. Fetch localhost 3001 to log in.
Nope. Try again. Where are you fetching to?
Is that the old, is that matter?
Mm-hmm. You are going to your local host, not your local host. All right, switch back over to the browser, give it a try. Okay, now we've got another failed to fetch, but probably for a different reason. So let's go to your back end. And you've got an app crashed because of a syntax error, unexpected token on 43.
All right. So here, let's see. So I'm missing my end curly bracket, right?
You are
That goes
inside the parenthesis.
Oh, inside. Okay.
Prettier will fix it for you. Just throw one more curly in there. and save. And Prettier fixed it. Okay, so let's go back to your front end, log in. You're all caught up.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Important to tune in for those debugging sessions, right, from the other students, because that's giving you an idea. There's so many different places that this can go wrong, that practice with reading the errors, figuring out what the errors are telling you and fixing it in your own code is probably as important, if not more important, than being able to write the code yourself. Computer doesn't always talk with us in the way that we want, but it is trying to help us out with that error message, helping us narrow that down. Okay, so we're handling if the email doesn't exist. Now we need to handle something else. We checked their email. Now we need to check their password. So we're going to go back to our backend, and in our login post, instead of just checking to see if the user doesn't exist, we need to check to see if their password matches what's in the database. So we're going to say const matching password equals bcrypt. Where did we use bcrypt before? We used it to hash the password. Well, bcrypt has this really nice function built into it called compare. And what we are going to compare is the rec.body.password to the user.password. Okay, where's that coming from? Our rec.body.password is coming in from our front end. It's in the body, and because it's in the body, we're able to use that in our rec.body.password. Where is our user password coming from? Our user is coming from our user.find1. That is coming from the database. So what are we doing? We are comparing the password that got sent in from the front end to the password that is stored as a hash in the database. All right, so if we compare those passwords, I don't want to do too much. I don't want to get some issues going on in the front end. There's so much that can go wrong here. I just want to see if this is working. So I'm going to console log out the matching password. I'm going to go to my front end, and I'm going to type in a password that I know it's not. I'm going to type in 123 and hit login, and I get email not found. Okay, well, why am I getting email not found? Because it doesn't matter what I type in for the password. If we don't have a user for that account, it doesn't matter what password they typed in. So I'm going to change my email to max@zane.tech because that lines up with the user account that I know I created. I'm going to go back over, I'm going to hit login, and it appears nothing happened. But what I want to do is scroll down to the bottom of my server terminal. Because when we console log out of the back end, we're not going to see that in the console in the front end in the browser. Our console.logs show up in our terminal for the back end. So I look at that and I got false. Okay, that's good because I typed in 3 letters over here and my actual password is what we created down here. If that is true, I should be able to type the real password in and hit login, and what do I get? True. You got it. What's up, Jennifer?
Hi, I caught up with the code. I just need another reminder about how to test the the matching password, please.
Yep. So for the correct password, take whatever information is on line 55 and 57 of your backend code and try and sign in with that. If you do the correct email, the correct password, and hit login, scroll to the bottom of your backend terminal and see if you've got a true in there. If you have a true, oh, sorry, let me pull this up. If you have a true down in your terminal, you are caught up.
So I have to log in.
Yep.
The information that I,
Now the front end isn't doing anything. It's the back end terminal that we're testing at.
Mhm. Email not found. That's gotta be an error on my part.
So go to Beekeeper and look in the users table. Do you have a row? And if you do have a row, what email address does it show?
Yeah, that's the right email address. I think I just typed it wrong, really.
Give it a try. If not, I'll let you share your screen.
What I just do. I don't know what I just did in Beekeeper. I accidentally got rid of my email somehow.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
Oh my God.
You down in the bottom, there's an apply button. Hit the cancel button down there.
Oh shit.
Oh, okay. Let's just fix this. What's your email?
Okay. JENNANNHARRIS@hotmail.com.
Okay. So we hit apply to save that in. We're gonna go back to your browser.
I see my mistake.
To your browser.
Let me just move the browser over.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. So yep.
Like, okay.
Okay, so let's hit login here. And nothing happens, but if we go to your, where is it? No, that's
Wait.
a live share. Where's your back end?
Hold on.
Okay. Okay, we got true. So that's for your real email. And then if I just type, I add a letter to your password, we get false. And so you're good to go and all caught up.
Okay, awesome. God, that took, sorry.
Lots of pieces here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else need help? We got our true, we got our false. Okay. So now let's do something with it. We're going to say, instead of just console logging out matching password, we're going to say if there is not a matching password, then res.send, we're going to send back an error, but it's going to be a different error this time. It's going to be password is incorrect. And the cool thing is because we're using the same error object that we're using up here, we've already handled all of this code on the front end. This if login data.error is still going to fire, it's just going to fire with the password is incorrect message instead of the email not found message. So when I go back over to my browser, now when I have an incorrect password in there, I get my password is incorrect. But we have successfully dealt with everything that we need in our login. So we need to handle one more thing we need to say if there is not a matching, if there is a matching password, send back our logged in true. And we also need to handle that on the front end. So on the front end, what we're going to do is say if there's a login data.error, it doesn't matter what the error is, if there is an error, alert out that there is an error. Else, we want to navigate to our post editor. And in order to use our navigate to, we need to import our use navigate from React Router. And we also need to say const navigate to equals use navigate. And if all of that works, we go back to the browser. I type in a email and password that are not correct, 123, and I get password is incorrect. But if I type in my correct password and hit login, I should go to the post editor.
I was literally talking to myself this entire time.
So
So I
we
said
just like to ignore you.
totally, which is fine. I get ignored majority of the time anyway at work, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, so I was just saying, so once they're logged in, you put the navigate to, and then you put the page that you want it to go to.
Correct.
Okay, because that's what I was wondering about when like doing the login for like my capstone, like what, like how to get to that point. But thank you.
We are going to do a lot more than just navigating to this page, but I want to give everyone a chance to catch up. This project is the like ultimate light bulb moment, right? For your capstone. This is where everything that we've learned over the past 20 weeks comes together and you start going, oh, that's why we learned all of that stuff. Because there are a lot of examples in this project that you can take directly into your capstone. This ends up being like a 5 or 6 day project, but man, is there a lot of stuff that you can use as examples in here. Anyone need a minute, or are we all good to go? Yep.
When we put our password, what are we supposed to get?
It's supposed to take you to the post editor page. And that's this navigate to. And in order to use the navigate to, we need use navigate. And in order to use navigate, we need to pull that in from the React router.
Did we add
The
new
only
code?
lines that, sorry. So the only lines that you changed was import, use navigate from the React router DOM, and then you put a const navigate to use navigate.
Yep. And then we use the
And
if else and then navigate to. Yeah. Jennifer, what's up?
I was just looking for the new code, but she just asked him. So it was just adding that other import.
The import, the use navigate, and the navigate to.
Navigate to. There it is. Okay.
What's up?
Sorry, I didn't want to speak out of turn if someone was speaking.
That's
I got a pop-up that says change your password.
Is it like a Chrome pop-up that's like you're using
Yeah,
an
it's a
insecure
Google
password?
password manager recommends changing your password.
Well, you can tell Google Password Manager to shove it because you're a developer now.
Okay. I can decrypt it with a hashtag, with a hash on it. Oh my God.
We had our company website is weare2zag.com, and I made a test for security employees, a security test for employees. So if they were sent an email from wearen't2zag.com, I literally just added 2 letters to the domain name, and it sent them like a password reset email and said like, please enter your password in order to like, test your security or whatever. And so that was a internal phishing attack, all because we used wearen't2zag.com. The reason I'm bringing it up is because when I started using the domain, Google Chrome flagged it and was like, this is an insecure website. You do not want to continue using this. Like, warning, someone's trying to steal your password. And I'm like, you're ruining all the fun. Kalai, what's up?
So it takes me to the next page, right? When I
It
click
takes you to post
login.
editor.
Okay.
Yes. Which is, if you think about it, that's kind of what we want the flow to be, right? If we're on our homepage, we're going to click the login button. Login is going to let us type in our information, and then we're going to go ahead and type in whatever our password was. And when we do, we have it set up to take you to the post editor. In your capstone, you may want to have some kind of admin page or a dashboard or something else, but it's up to you to say, hey, where do you want it to take you? Jordan, what's up?
Mine is not letting me get to that screen, the post editor.
Go ahead and share.
Huh?
Go ahead and share. No errors in the front end, no errors in the back end. I don't like though that your server response is, I think, grayed out. So let's see, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's just your color scheme. Server response. Yeah, you're missing some stuff in here. So once we get the server response, we want to get the login data by parsing the server response using JSON. And then if there is a login data.error, alert the login data.error, else navigate to the post editor. And then we can take this out. And now in here, go ahead and type in your email and password of the correct account.
What do you mean of the correct account?
Of whatever email and password are in your database.
Oh, okay. Don't I get the password from Beekeeper?
Haha, that's the beauty of hashing. You cannot get the password from Beekeeper.
Okay, I don't want to do it on live share then, because it's not my email and it's not really my password, but I just
That's
don't want
fine.
to see that.
I'm moving on to our trail, Jordan. If that doesn't work for you, it should take you to post editor with the correct email and password. If it doesn't, let me know.
Okay.
Artrell, what's up?
All right, I got an error, and I think I know how to fix it, but I just need some help.
Go for it.
All right. Da-da-da. All right, so I have the error line 25, :2, parsing return outside of function.
Yep.
So here's my line 25. Now, are they referring to the function of the const login?
They sure are.
All right, so I basically have to move all of this over a little bit.
Or you could just go into 23 and delete out the extra curly brace that you have in there that's supposed to be at the end of the file.
All right, let me make sure I have one at the end of the file, and I do. Okay, perfect. So delete that.
Now you've got a different error. Navigate to is not defined.
Okay,
So go find the navigate to in my code and figure out what line you're missing. In that login file, you've got the right one open. Just scroll up a little bit.
okay.
Hey, Max.
Yep.
What if we effed up and we tried to come up with a super simple password and we don't remember that password? That's the one that's on the server.
Hypothetically, if that did happen,
Yeah, that might be
the
different.
very long answer is that's why we build reset password functionality. The problem with that is building a reset password is going to take us at least 1 day in class, if not 2 days.
I'll just hang out and watch.
The much shorter answer to that is you can delete the row in Beekeeper and restart your backend server by hitting Control-C and up enter. And that will regenerate the password based off of whatever we seeded the password with at the bottom of our server.js file. You were looking for line 7 in my code, Artrell.
Navigate to. That's what I thought. I was looking like the blues and yellows aren't adding up. That's the best way I could say it.
Line 7 and line 2 of my code you need to put in.
Line 2 and line 7.
Okay, so now that I did that, like I stopped the server and then restarted it, what do I do?
Down at the bottom of your server.js, it should have whatever password is in here in the hash sync. That's what your password should be.
Oh, okay.
Did you just remember what your simple password was?
Yep, it was the same one you chose, bud.
Probably the same one Exona used, which is why Chrome is yelling at her for saying you used a really dumb password.
So how do I get it to show up in Beekeeper again with the same information?
It should, once you start the server again, it should automatically do that. So just go back to Beekeeper and hit the refresh button in the bottom right, and that should show the new user account.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, everyone good?
1 second, Max. Please.
Roll forward here, Archel, if you have an issue.
Yeah, so I went to terminal in the back end. I restarted it and I still have a crashing issue. So something's wrong
Okay.
somewhere.
Share your screen.
All right.
All right, you've got an issue on 51. Quest remote.
All right. I'm missing a curly brace, aren't I?
You are. Let's
Between
see
that
if
blue and
it's-
yellow?
Yeah, let's see if it's as easy as that.
Oh,
Appears to be. So go ahead and let's refresh here, try and sign in and see if it works.
all right. I did get that change your password thing. I just ignored it.
Okay, try and sign in and see if it takes you to the post editor.
Okay.
Good to go. All caught up.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So now that we've got this working, we only want this post editor to show up if you are logged in. Believe it or not, that simple sentence is what will take the rest of class to make work. So we're going to dive into that because security is only as good as its weakest link. And there's a good example of that. We were trying to sign in to watch the Eagles in the not in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs. That's what I was looking for. Yay, I'm so good at sports. Okay, in the playoffs. And what happened was I logged in, I think it was CBS, and CBS had to authenticate with Comcast. Comcast had to send back the login information. Once that got sent back, CBS had to make sure that I was in a region that was allowed to stream the game. And what was the error message? Parental controls server not responding. And my parents were saying, well, what's it matter for parental controls? Everyone can watch this, right? Parental controls shouldn't be causing the problem. Well, it wasn't that parental controls was saying, no, you're not allowed to watch it. It's the parental controls server crashed. And so because that server crashed, it doesn't matter what the rating of the game was, the server wasn't responding with any of that information. And because of that, we weren't able to start the stream of the game. So some poor sucker on Sunday opened up their laptop, disabled that line of code that was checking for the parental controls, and that let them in, or they rebooted the server or whatever. So we're only as secure as our weakest link. So we should go into our front end. We go into our front end, we go to our home.js, we go down to this go to post editor link, and I'm thinking I'm so secure, I'm going to take out that link entirely and only leave my login link. So I go back to Chrome, I go back to my homepage, and I can't get to my post editor, right? Well, I'm not logged in right now, and I go to my URL and I type in post editor, and I can still get to my post editor. I don't want that to happen. I don't want someone to be able to make a post by just knowing that my URL is post editor. So the first loophole that we are going to fix is, hey, on the front end, when someone goes to post editor, I want to check to see if they are logged in. If they are logged in, then they're allowed to go to this page. If they're not logged in, we want to tell them to fluff off and redirect them to the home page. So we're going to go to our post editor page, and we need to go ask the backend, hey, backend, is that user signed in? So what we're going to do is we are going to use an effect in our posteditor.js. We're in posteditor.js now. And that use effect is going to only load when this page first shows up. And when it does first show up, we're going to say check off. That's going to be an async function. And we are going to check the auth as soon as this page loads. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a const response equals await a fetch to our localhost 3001. That is going to go to our auth status. And we're going to use our we'll just leave it there. So we do our const data equals await our response.json. And we console log out whatever our data is. Okay. Once we once we get this set up, we've got our auth status, but we have no auth status endpoint. So we come back over to our backend and we say, hey, we're going to make a server.get auth status. That's going to be an async rec-res, and we are going to res.send back. What are we going to res.send back? Well, we could get the username and password from the front end, but we can't really because we're not on the login screen. They already typed that information in. How can we possibly know if they are signed in or not with the auth status unless we store their sign-in information somewhere? Well, how can we even identify what user just signed in before they got to this page? We need some way of storing the information when a user logs in for a session. We need some way that Express can keep track of a user's session after they log in. It seems like I'm throwing a lot of keywords around there and keep repeating session. Maybe we should install some new package called npm install express session.
Would you lift your screen up a little bit?
I sure can. Remember in your backend to Control C to stop your server out, and then do your npm install express dot session. Express oh my god, dash session. Express dash session.
Are we good to start it again after that's installed?
You can. So npm install express session and npm start. Okay, once we've got that installed, we've got some setup to do. So we're going to go up to the top where we import our bcrypt. We are also going to import our our sessions from express dash session. Sessions with an S, because this is going to be used for multiple sessions. Now we need to tell Express to use those sessions. Oh, I forgot. We need one more thing installed. I'm sorry. Control C out of your backend one more time. We are also going to install npm install connect dash session dot dash sequelize. I will copy and paste that command into the Zoom chat and live stream so you don't have any spelling errors. And I will do that in the live stream as well. So two things that we npm installed here, both Express Session and our other one, which is our connect session from our connect session sequelize. Import two things up at the top, our import sessions from Express Session and our import connect session from connect session sequelize. The reason why we need two different packages here is that while we can keep track of sessions using Express, we need some place to store them. And so what we're doing is we're leaning on our data store already. We're using sequelize in order to store the sessions that Express is going to be able to know about. So in order to pull that off, we've got some setup to do here. What we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, underneath our server, once we get our server set up, if you have a blank line in your terminal and did not remember to restart your server, that's going to be an npm start to go ahead and get that back up and running. So we do our install, we do our two imports up at the top, we do our server start, and now we're able to tell Express to do this, to get this setup working. So what we do is we say
Before
const.
we-
Yep.
Sorry. How do we check if they are downloaded? I forgot. I know
Great
it's
question.
based on.
Go to the package.json, and in the package.json, you should see both your Express session and your connect session sequelize. And if you don't have your Express session and your connect session sequelize, just run the install command again, making sure that your server is stopped before you start it.
Okay, thank you. I just forgot where it was. Thank you.
Jennifer, what's up?
Hey, you are in, well, we were in server where we were supposed to import those two new
Correct.
Express. Now I seem to have bcrypt and, oh, no, never mind. I also have two servers. Disregard.
Okay. Jordan, what's up?
I'm now noticing that yours is also app crashed waiting for file changes before starting. So I downloaded the npm install connect session sequelize. What else did I have to install?
Express session. And we will take our break and get this set up right after break. So go to break, be back at 7:25. We installed two packages, one called Express Session. Express Session is what's going to allow Express to know whether or not a user is logged in. Basically, they start a session when the user has signed in. And then we need a way to connect the session package that we just used up here to our sequelize database, right? Because those sessions need to be stored in somewhere. So now that we've installed them, we've imported them, now we need to get them set up so the server can use them. So what we do is we come down under our server.use cores in JSON, and we say, hey, the sequelize store for the sessions is going to come in from the connect session, and we are going to use the sessions dot store. And then we need to tell the server, once that SQLized store is set up using the connect session that we imported from here and the sessions that we imported from here, we then need to tell the server how to use it. And that needs a couple pieces of information. So we're going to server.use, just like we server.used cores and express. And server.use is a concept called middleware. In other words, it's something that runs in the middle of your endpoint. So before it gets to run your endpoint, it's going to do some processing. It's going to be the middle person. And so what we do is we say server.use sessions, and sessions takes a couple pieces of information. It takes a secret. This secret is used as a encryption key to make sure that those sessions stay secure. So we can make the secret anything we want. I'm going to make it my secret key. You could set that to whatever you wanted, including a random string. As long as this secret does not change, all of the sessions generated using that secret key will remain active. We also need to tell it, hey, where are we storing the sessions? We're storing them in a new SQLized store using the database. So that database is coming in from our db.js there. And finally, we need to let it know how long can the cookie be stored. The cookie is what is storing our session information on the front end. And we're actually got to do some math to make that work, because the cookie session length is in milliseconds. And we're like, well, we want that cookie to be valid for a while. If they're signed into the site, they should be able to stay signed into the site. So we've got to do some math. We say, hey, there are 1,000 milliseconds in a second. There are 60 seconds in a minute. There are 60 minutes in an hour. There are 24 hours in a day. And there are 30 days in a month, roughly. And so we do this math to say, hey, this cookie can stick around for however many milliseconds are in 30 days. This is a lot of configuration and takes a while to learn how to get it all set up. If you are curious and want to learn more about it, there is documentation in Express Session over at NPM. Just to show that to you guys, if we go to npm.js and do a quick look at Express Session, you will find this package is downloaded 1.5 million times a week. That's a good sign that this is widely used. And you'll see information in here about how we get the session working, and also information about like the cookie max age that we're using, as well as some information about how you can store the session. And eventually somewhere in here, it even shows you this connect session SQLize that we're using, which of course has its own set of documentation with it as well. So if you are curious about how all of this works under the hood, sessions are very complicated. And as you guys are seeing when we get it set up, there's a lot going on to make all of this work. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I've got no errors down here in the terminal, but one thing that's bothering me is that every time we save and reboot, there's a ton of SQL that's showing up in the terminal. And that's helpful for when we're setting up SQLize and understanding how SQLize works. But I don't really need to know the SQL that's running every single time I run a SQLize command. So I'm going to go to my db.js. And in my db.js, I have an option in the SQLize to put, after our connection string, a new object. And with that object, I can put logging false. And what that does is, you notice down in our terminal, we now no longer have SQL showing up there. So if you set this, if you comment this out or set it to true, it will bring all those SQL logs back. but we're kind of cool, right? We're good. We know SQLize is generating SQL for us. If we set our logging to false here, we won't have that show up in our terminal. There's also one other thing that I want to do before we continue going on the sessions. I made a mistake in my server.js, but in my DB, you can throw a comma in at the end of the new SQLize line before that last closing parenthesis, throw an object in there, set logging : false as an object that is working as the options for SQLize, and then we're good to go in our terminal. One other thing I want to fix. Here it says, warning, model attributes email is passed into finder method of model user, but the options where object is empty. Did you mean to use options.where? I sure did. Down here, we actually in our user.find one, we properly used the where clause. However, I forgot to use that where clause down here. So in my server started method back in server.js, I'm going to throw in a where here and put in that object. Now, when I save, I have that warning gone in my terminal. So that's line 69 on my code. Under the find one, I added in the key where, and then I added in that one more object in the email string going on there. We've got some deprecated warnings down here. That's okay. We can take care of them a little bit later. But we've got everything set up here. So if everything works as it should, and there's no way that it will the first time around because sessions are complicated and we wrote a bunch of code that we couldn't test quite yet. So what we can do, because we've got everything set up here, we can modify our login code. In our login code, what we're going to do is come down to the login, and if they are logged in, and only if they are logged in, we're going to save some information into the session. The way we do that is we say rec.session.user equals the user from the database. So this is kind of interesting because let me confirm that it's rec and not res. Where's my login? Login. Yes. What we're doing is we're taking the user from the database and saving it into the session. That session we're going to be able to get access to in our login status. But there's one more line of code we need to modify. When our user comes back from the database here, there's all kinds of information built into it that allows us to edit and update that information because SQLize gives us a ton of information about this user. However, that confuses the session. The session is like, I just want basic data about the user. I don't want to know all of this information about how to update the user. So we add one more line of code in here. We say where raw is true. And that just is going to include, I did that wrong. Sorry, different line. We do it down here. Find one where, yeah, that's where we do it. So we do it after the set of curly braces we already have, we put in a comma, and then we add in a new set of curly braces and we set raw to true. This is my absolute least favorite section of class to teach because there's so much code that we can't test. And it's all code that kind of works behind the scenes. And so I always hate setting up authentication because when one thing goes wrong here, it's really hard to debug because Express Session is doing a lot of technical, complicated work behind the scenes. So because we added in our rec.session.user here, we should be able to get the rec.session.user from the auth status. Let me review everything that we've changed in server.js. We installed Express Session and Connect Session Sequelize. Express Session is what's actually doing the session management. Connect Session Sequelize is what Express Session is using to know where to save our session information. We then came down to line 11 here, and we set our connect session up to our store so it knew how to connect our sessions together. Then we told the Express server to use this sessions package, and we configured it with the 3 required pieces of information. Then we came down to our login method and added in 2 lines. One, this raw true, which was saying, hey, database, I only want this basic information about the user. I don't need all this additional information about the query and where all of that came from. Then we come down and we say, only if the user is signed in, only if the rec.session.user matches the password and everything's good, take the user that's coming from the database and save it into the session. Because that session is being tracked, down in our auth status, we are able to console log out the rec.session.user. If all of that works, we can take a look at our front end, and our front end is logging out the data from the auth status. So we go to our front end and we hit the refresh button, and what do we get? Undefined. That's a good thing. That means the user is not logged in. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the home screen. We're going to hit the login button. We're going to sign in with the username and password that we know is correct. And when we end up on the post editor screen in the backend, motherfracker, that's not supposed to say undefined. Please stand by. Oh, I told you this is my least favorite class to teach because this is always the hardest part. All right, let's see what happens. Let's console log out the user and make sure we've got that data. Log in. You don't have to follow me on this. I am doing a little debugging. Okay, so our user is in here. Don't know if it is respecting raw, undefined. Okay. That session.user. It's not a good sign. Equalize store. Session. Session. Next session. New session. Equalize store. Okay, let's see. log rec.session. Make sure that that's coming in right. Oh, okay. Totally an example of why it's important to also keep in mind that we're going full stack here. We did all of this work in the back end. So what's happening when we log in here, the credentials are getting sent to the front end. And we're saying, hey, when you go to the post editor screen, or when you go to any screen, whenever you make an API call, we need the credential information that happened in the login. The way we do that is we go to our login in our front end, and this is where you should be following along with me. We also need to tell it that the credentials should be include. We need to include the credential information that's getting sent back from the back end to the front end. So in our login.js, in our fetch to the login, we need to add our credentials include. And we not only need to do that in our login.js, in our fetch, in our login, we also, on the post editor screen, need to include our credentials when we check for the auth status. Because there's no way the server can know if you're signed in or not unless you include the credentials as part of your request. So front end, 2 changes, login, JS in our fetch, we added credentials include. Then in our post editor, in our fetch for the auth status, we add in a object as the second parameter, and we set our credentials to include. And if, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, do you mind just going back to the top of the server? I just have to copy that secret.
Let me position this over, and so I can test. There we go. And the pain continues in the setup of login and authentication. We now have an error in the front end when I hit this login button that says access to fetch from origin 3000 blocked. And it says the value of access control origin header in the response must not be wildcard when the request's credential mode is include. And I'm like, come on, man. We got it in the back end. We're sending the credentials in. We're telling you to include the credentials. And Coors is like, nah, I don't want to work with credentials. So we need to do one more adjustment in, hopefully our last adjustment, in our server.use cores. We need to include, two pieces of information. What we do is we say, hey, credentials, totally cool. Include the credentials. Cores, stop blocking them. But we also need to tell it, hey, those credentials are probably going to come from HTTP localhost 3000. Now, keep in mind that your front end should be running on 3000. If your front end in your browser is on a different port, and so now I'm talking to you and anyone else who said yes when they started their front end server. If your front end port is something other than 3000, use that port over here. Use whatever port is in your browser URL over in your origin. Okay. For the love of God, please work. We click the login button. Not only did we get to the post editor, but check out what happened. Our backend now knows what user is logged in. If by some miracle you are on the post editor page and your backend is logging out the user information, you are more talented than I am as a developer, and you should just get your graduation certificate now. Lots of steps for this to happen, lots of places for this to go wrong. I expect to be debugging this with you guys for at least the next 12 minutes. So if you are on the post editor page in your front end and you can see the user information logging out, just pat yourself on the back, go get a drink, go celebrate. If you do not see this information in your terminal, raise your hand and I will try and help debug with you guys. And Zona.
Yay. Okay.
And try and pay attention to when we're debugging with another student, because it will probably reveal some places that we might be off. We are not connecting a session. We are Coney session.
Oh, right here.
We're importing it right
Okay.
here, but we are Coneying a session. We also have a secession. There you go. And then that shouldn't be called sequelize. That should be called sequelize store right here.
Store, S-T-O-R,
Yep.
okay.
And then we need a space between new and sequelize store.
Oh.
There you go. All right, I like the looks of all of that. Go ahead and save. And we also have an error down on 49, it appears. You've got an extra opening curly on 49.
Opening curly?
Oh, I'm sorry, closing curly. My bad. I think it's actually supposed to be. Let me just request remote. I think I screwed this up in my code, which made it more complicated to understand. This one closes this curly, and then we do our raw true. And now let's see, there's probably one other error on server 10. Server 10. Closing. I think we need one more parenthesis. I think prettier ran. Nope. Now it's mad. You've got a expression, express session X. We just want regular session. And then this should be connect session from up here.
Okay.
Okay, everything's working. I feel like it should be like take a shot every time someone tests in the browser and actually gets it to work.
Oh, sorry. I
Go
don't know
ahead.
where it is.
I'll let you, yeah, cool. All right, so we start here. We go to the login. Is that the right login?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's pull this over a little bit. So, oh, is it on another desktop? There we go. Okay, so your backend's over here. We're gonna do the login here. That took us to the post editor. Shut up, Chrome. Okay, we go back over here. We don't see it. That might be because in our auth stat, no, it's undefined. Boo. Okay, so for our login, we have to say if they are logged in, use the rec.session.user that took us so long to set up and store the user information from the database.
Okay,
So we're going to go back to our login. We're going to log in. We're going to go back to our backend, and you can see all the information in here, which means everything has worked and you're good to go.
thank you.
Take a shot. All right, Artrell, what's up?
All right, I'm trying to debug errors. I think I might see one potential place, but I'll have you come in to help me.
Sure, go for it.
All right, so basically trying to play catch up, finding some errors on my own, my own little win moments, right? So then I'm seeing errors over here in my HTML, my web browser code rather. Now remember over here, I didn't get a chance to do the logging false. I don't know if that has anything to do with this stuff.
Nope,
not-
not yet. So the problem that you have is a problem that I ran into over the course of doing this. What it's saying is in your cores,
Mhm.
it is saying we can't allow everything, though this wildcard cores, when we're also including the credentials. So to fix that, what we do is we go to your backend,
Mhm.
and in our server, when we set up the cores, we've got to give it some additional information. We tell it, hey, when the credentials come in, those are allowed. Those are allowed to be true. And we also need to tell it, hey, the origin of those credentials is going to be our localhost 3000. Now it's not mad about sending the credentials because we're not saying any website. We're specifying, hey, the origin of those credentials is going to come from our localhost 3000. So we go back and we try it all again. We are going to make sure that in our login, when the user is logged in, we're going to take our rec.session and we're going to store the user information coming from the database. And then when the user tries to check their auth status, which is in our front end. So our front end is checking auth status. So what we're going to do is say, make sure you don't have this auth status. No, you don't. Okay, router.get, server.get, sorry. Server.get auth status. Rec and res and console.log are rec.session.user. We want to see if the user's information is already in a session. Then we're going to just res.send something back. So we come over here, we go to our login. We type in the login information. We hit login. And now over in the backend, by some miracle, we have the user showing up. So we are good to go there. You are all caught up. The last thing I will help you with is in your DB. We added our logging false. And you are all caught up and good to go.
Yeah, that would have taken me like a good hour to fix what you just did. Thank you.
It may take us a good hour to get everyone fixed up to this point. So if this is working, try to go in through your code and leave yourself some comments. What is this code doing? And what part of this code do you not understand? Because that's probably where we'll be starting tomorrow. Kalai. You're on mute. You're still on mute. You're still on mute, Clyde.
I think she's saying go to the next person.
Oh,
I
okay.
found it. No, I found. You read it well. Yeah, I lost my cursor. So
Okay. Jennifer. Oh, Clyde. Sorry, I'll come to you next. Okay, so you've got an app crashed on server 48. So let's go to server 48.
yeah, it's. Yeah, I looked at it. It's more or less similar to yours. I don't know where the error is.
Yeah, I think I lost a lot of you guys there. Let me request remote. All we need is, I believe, one more curly brace here. Okay, that fixed it, but now we've got a different error on 7. And 7, we've got a parenthesis and a comma missing. Okay, that's up and running, so that's good. Let's go switch me over to your browser.
Oh,
Okay, and go ahead and hit login. And now when we go over to our backend terminal, we can see your user information has been stored into the session. And so you're good to go and all caught up.
thank you.
Good work.
Thank you.
Jennifer, now you're up.
Alrighty. As usual. Fixed mistakes, found other ones, made other ones. Okay, so you should be able
We've
to
got
see. Yeah.
our app crashed. So that's where we will start. You give me a remote. Okay, thank you. So let's see. Our app crashed because something else is running on 3000. We've got our e-addr in use. And so I go over here and this is where I want to look. So I'm going to go here. We don't have anything running here, but it's an empty one, so I can close that. I'm going to go over here and this is the one that's running everything. So I'm going to go back to this one and close it and only use this one that's running. So for good measure, I'm going to stop it and restart it. And it says everything is working. So let's go to the browser and take a look. Okay, so we're going to log in. Go ahead and type in the email and password that you know is in the database. Okay, now let's head to the backend terminal. And we don't have our user logging out that's signed in. So we've got some work to do there. The first place we're going to check is we're going to go to the login endpoint, which is here. And we're going to say, hey, if the user is logged in, then store that information in the session. That's working. Well, we hope that's working. That's in the right place. We are also going to check when we do this auth status, we want to know, hey, go check in the rec.session.user and see if that session user is in there. So I go back to the front end this way, and I'm just going to refresh the page, which is going to trigger our auth status check. And our auth status check is showing us the logged in user in the session. So you are all caught up and good to go. Nice work.
Thank you so much.
You all deserve a medal for getting sessions to work. I'm telling you, sessions are hard. All right, Alba.
I sent you the live share because I can't share my
Okay.
screen.
Thanks. Copy this.
It says connected to DB successfully, but express session deprecated.
That's okay. I don't think that's going to cause an issue, but let me
It says
pull.
undefined. Once I
Window.
put in my email and password, it says undefined.
Okay. Let me. Oh no. Live share. Join that one and copy. It says the joining collaboration session is no longer active. Let me try that again. Maybe I got an old link by accident. IFB.
Yeah, I sent you
Okay, that
another one
worked.
that's one too.
I think it's working now. This one. This is the other. Live share, join. Okay, there we go. Now it's connecting in. Okay, that's back end. This is your front end, and I will share my screen in case this helps anyone else figure out why their code isn't working. Okay, so our login is including our credentials, so that's good. Our post editor is checking off. We are missing our credentials include right here. I'm in read only mode, but in post editor line 14, take a look at that. It should look like this, which I'm have on my screen. This object that you need, and then the credentials include.
In line 14, you said?
Line 14, 15, and 16 of my post editor.js.
You said app.js? Or
I'm sorry,
post editor?
post editor.js. I will be severely disappointed if at least one person does not make a one-on-one with me to help them with their login.
Not to worry.
So I just need to include 13, 14, 15, and
then
I'm sorry, credentials included.
Yeah.
Post.
Yeah. And then if you just refresh the
After the-
post editor screen, see if that works in your backend terminal. Sorry, there's a little bit of an audio delay. I don't mean to talk over you. And I just saw it pop up in your terminal. So you are caught up and good to go.
I
Good
think you.
work. Anyone else need help?
Hey, Max, you stopped the live sharing on your front end. I don't know if you meant to do that or not.
Oh, damn it. Okay, let me restart that. Sorry. I was so careful joining the other live share and then I closed the wrong one. Blog front end. Live share. Read only.
Now, the end result should be that after we log in, then we have access to the post editor, right?
That We haven't done anything with post editor. The end result should be that in our backend terminal, you can see my user information over here after you log in. You muted yourself, Jordan. Do you see that?
Sorry. Yeah, but I'm not getting that. So I might have missed a step.
Okay,
We're
share
working in
screen.
home. Oh, sorry. So many screens.
Oh, yes.
Who am I? Okay.
Okay, so let me do a quick check of, let me request. So in our login, you've taken the user from the database and stored it in the session. You have properly console logged out the session, and we have no crashing information down here. So let's try, we're gonna go to our login page. I'm gonna use your email and our top secret password that I now know you are copying me on. We're gonna hit login and we're getting undefined. So that usually means on our front end, we need to make sure that when we do our login, that we're including the credentials. And we also need to include those credentials when we check the auth status, which you are doing.
Okay.
Credentials, yeah. So we just need to make sure that we include the credentials on the login as well.
Login
So
also.
let's try that again. Okay, and we come back over here. And there is your user.
Nice.
So you are all caught up. The last thing we're going to do is tell Sequelize to shut up. We don't need to see every command that you're running. So we set our logging to false and you're good to go.
Cool. Thank you.
Good work. Last call for questions. The good news is we are done with new code tonight. The bad news is in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to get you guys to understand the 40 gazillion steps that we just accomplished. Comment time, numbering time. Okay. We start out in our login. In our login, we need the user to type in their information. So we say, I'm going to do A1 here, so we know that we're talking about authentication. Our authentication updates typed in value in state. Then A2, user clicks login button. Interrupt me at any time when you either want to rehash, re-summarize what we just went over, or you don't understand what this comment is. I know it's tough. It's the end of the night. There's a ton of code that we just got working. Let's celebrate all of those steps working together by shooting for that level of understanding. So the user clicks the login button. What happens? We go up and we say, hey, A3, run login form submission function. And we come down here and we say, okay, A4, make fetch request to backend. We then say A5, include the typed in email and password from form. And A6, also include the credentials between the browser and server. Okay, we have no idea if this is a valid login or not. All we're trying to accomplish between A4 and A6 is, hey, backend, go tell me, is this a valid user or not? Now we go to the backend. In our backend, in our login, we say A7, go find the user in the database based using the email from the front end. Then A8, if the user does not exist, tell the front end there's an error. There's no user. We don't have to worry about whatever password they just sent in. We can tell them you can't get in, that account doesn't exist. If the user does exist, compare the password from the front end to the hashed password in the database. Right? Where's our rec.body.password coming from? That's coming from our front end. Where's our user.password coming from? That's coming from the user that we found in the database using their email. Okay, where do we go from there? If the password is not correct, tell the front end to fluff off. Otherwise, user auth must be right. Store the user info in a session. Why do we use a session? What's the whole point of that? The whole point of the session is to make sure that when we go to the auth status and they use another endpoint, we are able to know that that user is logged in, that user is authenticated. We also tell the front end that the login worked. Okay, we do all of that information. That gets us logged in. We finally come back and say A13, the user is authenticated according to the backend. Take them to the post editor. Now we go over to the post editor. And we say, check auth status according to the backend. Make sure to include the credentials info that got set using login. Now, because we're including the credential information over in our auth status, we are A16 able console log the info about the user based off who is signed in the session. In other words, log out the user info from A11. Where's our A11? Hey, we took the user from the database only if they got through all the hoops, only if the user existed, only if their matching password was correct. If all of that was true, take the database information about the user and store it into the session. If that user gets stored into the session, when they come back and make another API call, we are able to get the information about that user back out of the session. That's it. That's all I've got for tonight. More to come tomorrow. We did all of that setup, and we aren't even using the results of our auth status yet. But with all of that setup work done, we are now able to start securing pieces of our front end. So I would recommend take the next couple minutes, review all 16.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, okay, I'm back. Sorry, my internet just hiccuped on me. You guys thought I was like, peace out, I'm done. Fuck all off. All right. Take the next couple minutes, review those comments that we just put in, make sure you understand all 16 of them. I will share that file in the live stream. Actually, let me see if I can just send a link to it. Confirm. And I'm going to drop a link. C4 week 20 day 3. Okay, all of my files are in that final link that I just posted into the live stream. So if you would like to review them, you can review them from there. If you are absolutely sick of me, you can drop out of class. If you are not absolutely sick of me, what is wrong with you? You should be. This was a really hard class. Pat yourself on the back for following along. I'll stick around for the next couple minutes, make sure there are no questions. Otherwise, have an awesome evening. I will see you guys tomorrow.
Good night.
Max, for my 25-minute tomorrow, I might just have you help me set up my login then for the sidebar comments.
Great way to spend 25 minutes. We can get
Awesome.
it done in 25 minutes. I will be impressed, but we can give it a shot.
We're just gonna whip through it. No, I'm just kidding. I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. I'll see you.